All right, so we just talked about some of the general characteristics of slow twitch versus fast twitch fibers. Now I want to talk about where they get their ATP from. Okay, so as you might be able to tell from their names, slow twitch fibers, which are also called oxidative fibers, use oxidative phosphorylation to generate their ATP. Fast twitch fibers, on the other hand, tend to rely more on anaerobic glycolysis to generate their ATP, hence their other name, the glycolytic fibers. Okay, so I want you to think about these energy sources, these pathways for making ATP, and I want you to take that information and try to guess what you would see in these different fiber types for these characteristics. So would you expect to see a lot of mitochondria or not very many mitochondria in slow twitch fibers? What would you expect to see in fast twitch fibers? What's the density of blood vessels going to look like in slow twitch fibers versus fast twitch fibers? What is the resistance to fatigue going to look like in slow twitch fibers versus fast twitch fibers? Okay, so blood vessels, just remember blood vessels are going to be bringing oxygen into the tissue, into the muscle tissue. Fatigue is going to be due to lactic acid buildup in the tissue. Okay, so please take a moment, hit pause, think about these questions and see what you can come up with. So I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so hopefully you put some thought into those questions that I posed in the previous slide. So the fact that slow twitch fibers operate on oxidative phosphorylation is going to have a bearing on all of these characteristics. Okay, so for example, slow twitch fibers are going to have a higher density of mitochondria because that is where we are going to be doing our oxidative phosphorylation. We're going to have a higher density of blood vessels because we need to bring more oxygen into that tissue. Okay. We're going to have thinner fibers in slow twitch fiber. Well, slow twitch fibers are going to be thinner because you kind of need it. That makes it easier for the oxygen to diffuse in to the fiber. Okay. Slow twitch fibers are going to be more fatigue resistant because we are not generating lactic acid, which is a byproduct of glycolysis, right? So since we're not doing very much glycolysis, we're not generating very much lactic acid, which then is going to lead to us not fatiguing as easily in a slow twitch fiber. Okay. And then finally, slow twitch fibers are going to have a dark appearance due to the presence of this molecule called myoglobin, which binds oxygen. Okay, so myoglobin is going to help to hold the oxygen in that muscle tissue. Since we are relying on oxidative phosphorylation, we are going to need that myoglobin in the slow twitch fiber. Okay. I want to point out a couple things in this picture right here. So this, again, this is a cross section through a muscle that consists of several slow twitch fibers. And you can see if you compare it to the other picture, okay, you can see a higher density, that higher density of blood vessels. So the blood vessels are these kind of dark blue dots that are kind of spread around here, okay? And you can see that the fibers themselves are thinner, right? So here's one fiber right there. Here's another fiber. Can you see the like sort of the borders between the fibers? So if you compare those to these fibers here, you can see that they're a lot thinner. These are on the same scale, okay? All right, so now let's move on to the characteristics of fast twitch fibers, okay? Again, remember fast twitch fibers use anaerobic glycolysis. So a lot of these characteristics reflect that fact. Okay, so we're going to have a lower density of mitochondria in these fibers because they don't need to do oxidative phosphorylation, or they're not going to do very much of it. Okay, lower density of blood vessels because we don't need to bring oxygen into the tissue because we're doing anaerobic glycolysis. We have thicker fibers because we don't need that oxygen to penetrate to the center of the fiber because, again, we're not relying on oxygen to generate our ATP. We're going to be fatiguing more easily because we're generating lactic acid from our anaerobic glycolysis. And then finally, we're going to have a lighter appearance due to the absence of myoglobin, right? So we're not going to have myoglobin around because we're not going to need to bind oxygen in that tissue, okay? So again, you can see some of those characteristics in the picture. So these like fatter, thicker fibers and a lower density of blood vessels. I do want to mention that there is an intermediate fiber type called the type 2A fibers, which exhibit a mixture of these characteristics. So it's kind of intermediate between the slow twitch and the fast twitch fibers. Okay, so we just talked about individual slow twitch fibers and individual fast twitch fibers, but I now want to talk about what happens in a whole muscle, which is going to consist of many fibers, many muscle fibers, right? So an individual muscle, so I'll remind you that we have an individual muscle shown here made up of individual muscle fibers, right? So there are several muscle fibers in this muscle, okay? One muscle is going to be composed of multiple fiber types. It's going to have a mixture of the different fiber types, okay? So some of them will be fast twitch, some will be slow twitch, some will be that intermediate type, okay? And the ratio of your fast twitch to your slow twitch to your intermediate, your type 2As, is going to reflect the type of work that is done by that particular muscle, right? So if you have a muscle that's going to be doing a lot more kind of endurance type work, then you will see a lot more slow twitch fibers. If you have a muscle that is going to do more like just kind of, you know, short, strong bursts of contraction, then you're going to see more fast twitch fibers, okay? If you look at different muscles throughout the body, you'll see different ratios. I think I just said that. You can also see differences between individual people, right? So some people will tend to have more slow twitch and some people will tend to have more fast twitch. And that's kind of a function of partly of genetics and also of training. So one thing that I want to say here is that you can train, right? So you can like train for a marathon or something like that, and that'll kind of not fully convert your muscle fiber types, but it will, you know, it'll make your fast twitch fibers act more like slow twitch fibers. So you will get like a sort of partial conversion of the type and the characteristics of your muscle fibers with training. Okay. Okay. All right. So that basically concludes my discussion of the muscle fiber types. Here's a table from your book that shows some of the characteristics of the different muscle fiber types. So we've got our slow twitch here, we've got our fast twitch here, and then this is that intermediate type, the type 2A. That is it for this video. Thank you for watching.